G'day, how you going? I've been riding motorcycles for some 36 years now, and you can imagine that time I've had a lot of motorcycles. But I've got to say, this little Suzuki vstrom is one of the best little bikes I've owned. It's a great all-rounder. The only problems I really had with it, I didn't like about it, was the screen. I had a few vibrations around my head, so I replaced the brackets with a man-straight bracket, so it makes it adjustable. And I tuned the screen how I wanted it, and now it's smooth as. And the other problem I had was when I fitted panniers on the side, the panniers were too close to the foot peg, and it made it really hard for my wife to get on the bike. So what I did was I made a few modifications to the foot pegs, and here's the modification I made. As you can see with the pannier on, it's just too close, the foot peg's too close to the pannier and you can't get your foot on. I've got a pretty big foot, you can imagine like trying to get your foot on there and trying to get onto the bike, trying to turn your foot and get on the bike, it's pretty hard. You put your toe on, it's still hard. Even when you're on the bike, your foot's hard, your back leg's hard up against the pannier, it's really hard to be comfortable. So what I did was, I moved the foot pegs forward about 4 inches, gives you more room to get your foot on. This is how I did it. Okay, this is what I did. First thing I did was pull the pin out, I removed the foot peg. Then I removed this bolt here. Then what I did, I made one of these. All it does, it fits into where the foot peg would normally go, with a hole through it so the pin can go through it, like so. And then I've got a bolt. I put a spacer on it. I put the spacer behind there, and the bolt goes through there and goes into the existing place, so that when it does up, this doesn't touch up against the bracket. Just a matter of doing that up tight, which I won't do in a second. Then get the pin that came out to the foot peg, put that back through there, put the clip back on, put some Loctite on that bolt, do it up really tight. I just did my fingers to show you. And there we go. That's where the original foot peg was. There's the front of the bracket I've made. And the foot goes on there. Simple as that. I'll put a pannier back on and show you. Okay, the pannier's back on now. You can see now that the original foot peg was there. Now it's further forward, which means when I put my foot up, I can now put my foot on here. And look, no problems at all getting on the bike. No worries at all. I've got a big foot. My wife's only a little footed person, so there's absolutely no problems at all to get off and on the bike. That's what I did. Another little modification I made. If you've got a big foot, I'll show you. When I first made them, I drilled a hole through here and I put an off foot peg I have a trail bike in there. So I mounted that on there so that I could have it out and she'd have more foot positioning. But she said to me she doesn't need that because she's a little foot. If you had a bloke with a big foot, or it gives you more room. You can just fold up when it's not being used. But I don't use that. She's happy with just the way it is at the moment. The only thing I have found is when I'm pushing the bike backwards, sometimes my leg touches the plate with my boot. But I'm careful now, I know they're on there, so I put my foot out a little bit and push back. But that's the only problem I've found. She has a small foot, so it doesn't interfere with my foot at all. I get my feet off the pegs, it doesn't seem to bother me. I don't leave them on the bike. I only put them on the bike when I'm taking her for a ride, or when I'm putting the panniers on and she's coming for a ride. So they come off, any other time I just put the normal foot peg in. But I'll show you how I made them. One thing you will notice about the two brackets, as you can see, one's different size to the other. That difference is the same, but this difference here is a bit different because on the other side there's the exhaust. So you've got to make it out a little bit. Same principle, it still gives you the same positioning, but it's a little bit wider on one side, which is the exhaust side because of the exhaust. But they're pretty simple things to make. I'll just take the bolt out of there and show you how they look underneath. All they are is a right angle, a flat bit of plate. It just goes straight up. But this part here, as you can see, it's on an angle. That angle fits into the foot peg, and because the foot peg's a bit wider, I've just welded a bolt on there to space that out, a nut, sorry, to space that out so it fits in there nicely. Let's get this one, it's a bit smaller. All that on top is checker plate. You can buy it, it's no expensive stuff to buy. We call it checker plate in Australia, I don't know what we call it the rest of the world, but I guess it'd be the same name. It's very simple, it's very light, there's nothing to it really. So it's just really a right angle, welded, a plate weld on the end of it, nice flat plate, a hole drilled through it. The bolt goes through and the spacer fits on the back. So when it's up against the bracket, this part doesn't rub on the bracket. I don't mark your brackets. Really, that's really all there is to it. I've only pop riveted the plate on, which gives it like a platform. I put a plug in the end of it. This is just a rubber plug to make it a little bit neater. If you're not a great welder, what I suggest you do is you make it, spot weld it, then give it to a workshop and let them weld it professionally. But I mean, if you're a reasonable welder, I'm not a great welder, but I did a reasonable sort of job, it'll work fine. So there you go. That's the way I made my foot pegs for my V-strom so they would clear the panniers. Hope you enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed doing it, and I'd really like to hear from you. If you want to make some comments, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Okay, see you later.